Emily Jeffrey.
BBC Radio Sussex.
Emily here until 10 o'clock this morning with Sunday Breakfast, keeping you up to date with all the latest news and also some fantastic stories this morning of people bringing hope and light in the lockdown. We'll hear from some of the people behind the Lights in the Lockdown film, exploring the role of faith communities in Brighton and Hove who have supported people during the pandemic. 22 minutes past 7. Now, when lockdown happened, faith communities had to think about ways to remain visible and stay connected with the wider community, from broadcasting the call to prayer to making sure vulnerable people in the local area were looked out for and looked after. Well, let's take a listen to a film called Light in Lockdown, a clip from the film from Light in Lockdown. This is a short documentary film exploring how members of so many different faith communities, including churches, mosques and synagogues, stepped up to the challenge of meeting the needs of so many people in Brighton and Hove during lockdown. You'll hear from the Imam of the Al Medina Mosque in Brighton, Imam Uthman Jiwa, also mosque member Saqib, and one of the many people coordinating and distributing hundreds of food parcels to key workers, restaurant owner Sabri Ben Ammar.
The whole idea behind moving the call of prayer once a week to outside the mosque, or allowing the community to actually hear the call to prayer, it was to kind of inspire the community that was missing the mosque, the community that for many weeks hadn't been able to attend the mosque. So it was kind of morale boost for them, and at the same time it allowed us to also connect with our neighbours as well and have those kind of conversations with our neighbours as well.
We're all people of faith, so we understand that our faith is something that can decrease and increase. So we always need to do something which will actually help our faith increase or stay intact. So not being able to come to the mosque and not being able to congregate has affected our faith a lot, you know. So coming here to just witness the call to prayer is at least some sort of encouragement and boost for us.
The lockdown kind of happened at a very crucial time as well, the month of Ramadan, where one of the main wisdoms behind fasting is so that we as Muslims can experience what the poor experience on a daily basis. So that feeling is experienced every Ramadan, but this Ramadan, because there was that sense of more opportunities of helping people that were in need, many Muslims actually felt that this Ramadan was very, very different to previous Ramadans in terms of being able to actually serve and in terms of being able to be there for members of our community.
We've been cooking food for the NHS, for the hospital, we've been taking food. We had this year the purest Ramadan ever happened. We believe in our religion, Islam, everything happened for a good reason. Because before we all so busy with work and then even the environment, plastic everywhere. You know, now dolphins start coming to Brighton Beach. And I'm certain this is going to build a better humanity for all religion, for all faith.
All that from the film Lights in Lockdown, just putting the spotlight on some of the many different faith communities in Brighton and Hove who have been making a difference. We'll hear more from the film later and speak to the film's director, Sarah West, and also the Reverend Anthea Ballum from the Interfaith Contact Group. You're listening to Sunday Breakfast on BBC Radio Sussex and BBC Radio Surrey. Earlier I played you a clip from a new documentary film that's been highlighting some of the brilliant work being done by many different faith groups in Brighton and Hove during lockdown and beyond. In a couple of moments I'll be joined by the film's director Sarah West and Interfaith Minister Reverend Anthea Ballum. But first, a little bit more from the film. For many older people, a lunch club in church is an important highlight of the week, but with lockdown restrictions, churches have had to adapt quickly to serving and connecting their communities when groups like this had to stop. So here's a little clip from the film now. You'll hear first from Caroline Henderson, the coordinator of Food and Friendship at Hove Methodist Church. She's busy chopping veg. And then from Methodist Minister Reverend Andy Lowe.
We have two lunch clubs, one on a Tuesday, one on a Thursday, and in total there's about 100, more than 100 people a week that we reach, that they either come here or they come to volunteer, and a lot of those people are shielding or they're isolating. So we yeah, this has kind of evolved over the last few weeks and into the smooth, efficient military operation you see. We looked into the health and safety, the rules around how many people are allowed in a kitchen, so 2 metres distance all times. We carried on getting our fair share supply, which is 5 tonnes a year, so we had quite a lot of food we could use. So Rachel and I just thought, let's try it. So we started with about 30 meals one Tuesday, and I didn't even have to ask for people to deliver the meals. I was inundated with offers of help from people from the church, people that I knew in the community that are at home furloughed, or they're, just desperate to do something good and useful. So we've now got 23 people delivering. Hi darling, you alright?
The lunch club has been such an important part of their daily routine, their daily lives, their weekly kind of routines, that without it they would be really bereft, let alone not necessarily have the right food every now and again too. So I mean it's both the contact and social element of it, but also just the nutritional element too.
It's us giving people a hug through our food, that's what it is. And if people haven't got any human contact all week, which is the case with a lot of people, I know from the feedback what it means to get that little bit of food, that they know we've prepared it for them and we're thinking about them.
If you want to see the Light in the Lockdown 2020 film, it's on YouTube or on the Brighton and Hove Interfaith Contact Group website. Joining me now, Sarah West, who made the film, and the Reverend Anthea Ballum from the Interfaith Contact Group, who'll also bring us a 60-second sermon in a few minutes' time. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sarah, let's start with you. It's a very moving film, the way you've captured so many people just gently going about their business, trying to help others. What was it like making the film and hearing all those stories?
It was actually a very gentle process. People were just doing what they do. Many faith communities do help their most vulnerable, and they have a way of kind of kindling and corralling the goodness in people, and they just adapted in the new circumstances that were really difficult. But they just did something good. And it was wonderful to watch, absolutely wonderful.
What challenged you about watching the footage back that you'd collected over the months?
I think I was most surprised at how much the faith communities did in the first place, interestingly. I was suddenly aware that they do much, much more, very quietly, than most of our communities really know. If you're not going to church, if you're not part of faith community, you're not really aware of the amount of work that they do to kind of hold that goodness and help people.
Anthea, we know a lot of this work, like Sarah says, it's just going on in our communities all year, but people don't know about it. But a lot of people suddenly found themselves feeling quite alone and struggling, particularly when lockdown first happened. Why do you think faith communities were able to help in the way that they could?
I think that they have an ongoing pattern and a knowledge of looking after their communities and a real understanding of care and nurturing. And that nurturing isn't just a spiritual nurturing, it's a physical nurturing. And a lot of those places of worship actually have programs. I mean, if you go into them, whether they're churches or synagogues or mosques, they have facilities and they have a mindset to look after people. I think it's absolutely an intrinsic part of what they do and what they are. And so, in a sense, when Sarah went out and researched this film, she was connecting with something that, in fact, existed before this terrible pandemic, but just went into another place. And in fact, the leader of the council at the time, Nancy Platts, actually comments on this, because she actually says that she takes her lead from something that had almost been done before. Am I right, Sarah? Is that correct?
Yeah, she found a template. The council found a template that was already in place that they were able to then build on to create food hubs for people across the city.
What do you
So
hope?
They really have. I think, Emily, they really know how to look after us. They know how to look after us when we're homeless or whatever, and they know how to look after us spiritually. And I think that is something we don't often realise.
Just briefly, Anthea, before we hear your 60-second sermon, what do you hope this means in terms of bringing communities together in the future, not just in Brighton and Hove, but other places too?
I really wish that the example that we see in that film is something that people take on board in other parts of the country. I'm really hoping. And there's a moment again in the film, I mean, it's a brilliant film, I shouldn't say that, but I think it is, when Sarah points out that there is a statistic that shows that lots of people suddenly started thinking about prayer and looking at services. There is a great movement and a great desire to make the connection between caring for people and spiritual awareness. And I think, wouldn't it be nice if that kind of, the pandemic that affected us physically and has been so negative actually had a positive effect in inspiring us in other ways spiritually as some kind of payoff from the horror of what we've been through, really.
Well, Sarah West, thank you so much for making the film. You can see it on the Interfaith Contact Group website and also on YouTube. We're going to play a little clip again from it a little bit later on Sunday Breakfast. Thank you for joining us. Anthea, stay with us. Your 60-second sermon coming up. Well, this morning we've also been hearing from some of the people who have been involved in a documentary exploring how faith communities in Brighton and Hove have been supporting people in so many different ways during the coronavirus pandemic. So here's another short clip.
We've been cooking food for the NHS, for the hospital, we've been taking food. We had this year the purest Ramadan ever happened.
I didn't even have to ask for people to deliver the meals. I was inundated with offers of help from people from the church, people that I knew in the community that are at home furloughed or they're, just desperate to do something good.
I'm thinking I didn't do so much, I'm a ring in the big chain, a small tiny ring. People really was amazing and still amazing. Everybody supported each other.
It's us giving people a hug through our food, that's what it is. And if people haven't got any human contact all week, which is the case with a lot of people, I know from the feedback what it means to get that little bit of food, that they know we've prepared it for them and we're thinking about them.
Well, whilst getting food out to people was a very immediate need and still is in many cases, there are also many more ways in which faith communities have played a big role in helping people with loneliness, financial struggles, and being able to point people in the direction of how they can also find help and support if they're struggling with their mental health and well-being too. If you want to see that film that I've taken some clips from this morning, it's called Lights in the Lockdown 2020. And it's on the Brighton and Hove Interfaith Contact Group website. That's www.interfaithcontactgroup.com.